Hey guys, it's Mr. Kennedy back with another video. This one's going to be on the immune system. Now when we talk about the immune system, there's really two types of immunity. There's innate and adaptive. Innate immunity is going to act the same no matter what the infection is, no matter what the pathogen is. Oftentimes we call this the first line of defense. And the adaptive immunity is a system that's only found in vertebrates, and it is specific responses to a pathogen. And this is when we get the antibodies produced. So let's go into each one of them in a little bit more detail. Innate immunity would be, an example would be your skin, especially secretions on the skin, such as mucus or sweat. An acidic pH around 3 to 5. It kills a lot of bacteria or particles that are trying to get into your body. We also have some phagocytic cells that are non-differential, or preferential, I should say. There's macrophages, which are big eaters. They basically engulf foreign invaders and kill them, kamikaze pilots, if you will. We have neutrophils and natural killer cells. Another one would be interferons. Interferons, if you remember viruses inject their DNA or RNA into a cell's own DNA and RNA, and the cell actually makes more viruses. As the virus parts are produced, they're put together and make new viruses, and they usually explode out of the cell. Well, interferon actually interferes with this process, so it's kind of like if I put you in a room with 1,000 different bicycles torn all to pieces. If I gave you no instructions whatsoever, it'd be tough putting those bicycles together. But if I actually gave you instructions to follow, assuming you read them, then it would make the process a lot easier. That's kind of what interferon does. It takes the instructions away. And the last one is, the last innate immunity is the inflammation response. And this happens whenever we have a puncture, a cut, or a wound on our body in which we have red blood cells flood to the area. Now, you often get redness, swelling, and pain. The reason you get redness is because realize white blood cells flood to the area, so blood flow is going to be increased in the area. So why do you get swelling? Because there's more blood in the area than normal. And why do you get pain? Because there's more blood in the area than normal, pushing on the pain on the nerve receptors, so you get pain. Now, a lot of coaches, such as myself, would tell you to use the RICE method. If you ever got an injury, say you sprain your ankle, it'd be rest, ice, compression, and elevation. All four of these are going to reduce the inflammation response, and it's going to make you feel a little bit better. Now, if it's not innate immunity, then it is adaptive immunity, and this is where you T cells and B cells. These are both lymphocytes. They're white blood cells, and their names really occur from where they mature. The T cells mature in the thymus gland, the B cells mature in your bone marrow. And when you think about these type of cells, you have to tell about antigen. Antigen is any substance that elicits a response from a B cell or T cell. Now, if you look down here in the bottom right-hand corner, you can tell that these antigens are different shapes, circle, triangle, whatever. I mean, of course, for illustration purposes. Now, the antibody is going to fit on a particular antigen. So there's going to be an antibody for each. That's very important for you to remember. So B cells are what make antibodies, and they make memory cells. So let me explain. The first time I ever had chicken pox, it took a while for my body to defeat it. I had the fever, I had the full-blown chicken pox, etc. But since that time, I probably have encountered chickenpox many, many times throughout my life since I teach. And the antibodies inside my body recognize the chickenpox virus, and they destroy the chickenpox virus before it has a chance to replicate inside my body and actually cause a full-blown episode of sores, fever, etc. So that's what B cells do. B cells not only make the antibodies, they also make the memory cells. Now, the T cells are a little bit different. T cells make what we call helper T cells or killer T cells for response to a certain thing. So they will make cells that actually go out and kill them directly and not through the use of antibodies. Now, when we think about immunization, all of us were immunized when we were little. There are two types. There's passive immunity and active immunity. Passive immunity is what we would get through maybe breast milk or through antibiotics. We do nothing for this. So you need to remember, passive immunity requires no energy. Now, since it required no energy on our part, it doesn't stay with us. It actually disappears over time. Now, this is why, though, that mothers that breastfeed their infants, oftentimes the infant is healthier because they're getting the immunities of the mother through the breast milk. Hopefully none of us still breastfeed, so we don't still have the immunities of our mom. Now, active immunity is a little bit different. Active immunities we get through vaccinations. And basically what a vaccination is a weakened form of the virus being injected into your body. Your body defeats it, but then realizes it is able to recognize those antigens that are linked to that particular virus. Therefore, the next time you come in contact with it, your body's able to destroy it and before it has an effect on you. So active immunity requires energy on us, but it stays with us forever, mostly. Passive immunity doesn't require any energy on our part, and we have to go back for it over and over and over again. Now, there are disruptions in the immune system. Allergies are probably the most common. Allergies are an exaggerated response to an antigen. So when something comes around our body, a lot of us are immune or have allergies to pollen. When it starts to be that season, we start to have runny noses. And that's because histamines are being released, which histamines cause our nose to run, increase in bodily fluids, etc. Now, a lot of times for allergies, you would take an antihistamine, which would block the histamine response. So that makes it where it's a little bit more bearable to us. We have autoimmune diseases as well, which is when our body fights against itself. An example would be rheumatoid arthritis. It's when our body actually deteriorates between the bones, and it causes a deformity and it causes pain in people who have rheumatoid arthritis. And then we have immunodeficiency viruses, which is the most classic one, of course, is AIDS, which is acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which comes from the immunodeficiency virus, which is human immunodeficiency virus, which is HIV. And this is an immune response to antigens. Okay, so these are just some disruptions or things that may go wrong in the immune system. Now, when you talk about pathogens, remember pathogens are anything that causes a disease. There are evolutionary adaptations of pathogens to fight against these different immune systems that we have, or immunities that we have. The first one is an antigenic variation. Within a single virus or within a single pathogen, there may be many, many different types of antigens on their outside. Therefore, they're going to avoid detection. Flu's the most common, probably. Flu's antigens change regularly. That's why if you have a flu shot, you get it year after year after year, because you have to get a different flu shot for what they think will be the flu of this year. So and what that allows it to do, because the flu virus is evolving so quickly, it allows it to keep ahead of the vaccinations. Latency would be another one where it may lay inside your system waiting for your body to get attacked by something else, and when it hits a weakened state, it comes back out. One example is the chickenpox virus sometimes lays latent in our bodies and in an inactive state, and whenever the time appears or the time comes right, it turns into shingles. So you might hear some older folks having shingles, and I've heard it's very painful. A next thing would be an attack of the immune system itself, which, if you can attack the immune system and you can knock it out, then you can thrive, and that's what HIV does. So these are some evolutionary adaptations that pathogens have developed in order to be able to survive. Now, I hope this helps you a little bit with the immune system, and I will talk to you soon.